Hi, so today we're going to look at replacing the strings on this Ibanez guitar with a floating bridge. Our people for some reason seem to be really wary about changing the strings on a floating bridge. Trust me, it is not difficult. It's a little bit more time consuming than replacing the strings on a fixed bridge or something like a Stratocaster floating or non-floating trem, but it's not too bad. All you need to do is just follow these instructions and your guitar will be good as new. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a quick run through of the parts on this and the various little bits of differences between this and a Stratocaster bridge. And then we'll look at changing the strings. I'll do a little bit, show you the theory of it, and then you can pause the video, work through the rest of the strings, and then start the video again and we'll move on a bit further. So first off then, I'm going to pause the video and move the camera, so we'll just have a look at the parts of a floating bridge and the differences between this and an ordinary guitar. So the first differences you've got between this and, say for example, a Stratocaster is this block. Now on a Stratocaster there'll just be a small cut in the back, if you like, where the bottom of the block goes through and it attaches to a set of springs which are held within this cavity. Those springs then attach to the body of the guitar underneath and give you a bit of tension. So when you drop the tremolo, it'll spring back again. The difference on this is instead of having that fixed block here, you've got a cavity here. So there is basically a big gap underneath there, so you can bend your notes down as you would with the Stratocaster if you like, and you can also, because you've got a cavity beneath, you can pull back and it will give you a higher pitch note. Well, this is where people get a little bit worried when they're changing the strings, because it's easy for that to disappear off into the cavity and all the springs to come off. But we're not going to do that. We'll show you how to avoid that today. At the other end of the neck, there's a difference between this and the Stratocaster. Are these? This is a lock-in nut, and basically tensions the strings at this end as well as at this end. Okay, so if we look at the way the strings work on here, we're getting closer. These little black pieces here, these are fine tuners. So because you've locked your strings at this end, you won't be able to use these tuning pegs, and what you actually use is these to adjust your fine tuning on your notes. You'll notice as well, if we zoom in closer, the strings drop into this little hole here and disappear into the void, and there is a little nut on the end. What these do, instead of coming back through the underneath of the body as they do with a fixed bridge or a Stratocaster if you like, you have a bare end of the string will go into here, and this nut tightens up and gets tension on the string, so that will clamp the string from this end. This will clamp the string from the other end, and that's essentially what keeps these in tune a lot better than your standard stuff does. So what we're going to do now is we'll have a look at taking the strings off and making sure that this doesn't move. So I'm going to put this back onto its stand, the camera back onto its stand, so I can use both hands, and we'll just have a look how we do it. Okay, so if you bought your guitar from new, you'll probably have got either an Allen key or a hexagon key which will fit these nuts, probably one or the other. Everything I've had so far has always been like one of these Torx star drivers. So the first thing I'll do with this is just take these off, just loosen the screws off and remove this locking nut. That'll then give you access to all these strings. See, it doesn't look like a normal guitar nut. It's got slots in there, but it's completely different. The next thing we're going to do is reduce the tension on the strings and move the fine tuners a little bit. Right, so with the fine tuners, all we want to do with these is wind these back up so they're nowhere near the full strength into it, if you like. So if we move these back up, when you've eventually restrung it, this gives you space to retune your guitar if you need to, and you will need to briefly for a short while. So they're back as far as I can get them without them coming out. Okay, so before we actually start detensioning the strings, we need to block this. All we're doing with this is basically putting something underneath the tremolo to stop it moving backwards. When you reduce the tension on these strings, the springs are going to compress and it's going to push the body of this back into the cavity, and it'd be really difficult to string. So you can use anything you like, basically it'll fit as long as it keeps the block reasonably level with the body. Some people use a battery. If you look at a lot of guitar techs or professionals, they use cloths. You can buy strange little things like this, which are supposed to sit across and underneath. This one doesn't fit, but all the underneath are different on them anyway. So once we block that off, we know it's not going to move anywhere, so you're safe now to start detensioning these strings. So all we've got for detention of the strings is this. This is just a little string winder. Just makes life a lot easier and a lot quicker. You can do it by hand if you want, but it might take you a bit of time. So all we're doing with this is we're just winding this down, detensioning the strings so they're completely slack. Do that for all of them. Okay, so that's all of the tension gone on the string, so I'll just put that back under there to protect it. Okay, so the easiest way now of removing these strings is just simply a pair of cutters like these, cut the strings. You'll notice the bridge is still where it's supposed to be, dead level with the body. Okay, so all we need to do now basically is remove the strings. So from this end, it's just a case of winding them out from underneath this tensioner, unwinding them off the tuning pegs, and then finding somewhere suitable to dispose of them. If you remember, if you've got pets, you do not want to be near your pets, they're going to cut the feet. At this end, what you have at the end of these pegs is exactly the same connector that was on the other end on your tuning nut, or the locking nut. So all we're doing with this is we're just pushing into it. Excuse this, it's a bit of a wobbly one. Slight turn anti-clockwise and the string will come out. Similarly, all of them all the way down the line, maybe a quarter of a turn anti-clockwise and the string will come out. So let's get the rest of these strings removed and we'll come back in a few minutes. So if you want to pause the video now and come back when you've got all your strings removed. Okay, so that's all the strings removed. What I've done since I've removed the strings is I've just given the body a bit of a polish off with just household polish. And it's entirely up to you whether you follow this process and you want to carry on, or if you don't, you can skip on further. But we're going to give these frets a bit of a polish and the neck a bit of an oil. So all I've got is these little things. They basically sit over the frets just to protect the neck. These come in two sizes basically. For when you get further up the neck, obviously that's not going to fit, it's going to be too big. Now some people prefer to masking tape over the pickups for doing this. I suppose you can get a little bit of metal and such flying around, but I've got passive EMGs on these, and there's no grit or anything that's going to get stuck into those, so I don't personally bother. And all we do basically with this is we use this is 40 gauge wire wool. It's cheapest chips you can get on eBay. You can get a big bag of it for a couple of £. It's not expensive and it goes forever. And all we do basically on this, because your frets are going to get filthy as you're playing, just align that cover across your fret like that basically, and then you just gently rub the wire wool over it. Now this is very, very fine grade, it's a polishing grade wire wool, so it's not going to cause any damage to your frets. Just basically make sure you get all your rubbish off there, and you can see the difference between that one and this one. I'll do this one as well just to show you a bit further. Give it a good old polish. You'll see all the rubbish comes off and it returns to a more of a silver colour. Okay, so I'm going to go up the rest of the neck. If you want to do so, please do so. So all you're going to need really is some of these or some masking tape with some 40 gauge wire wool. Okay, that's all the frets polished up now. You can see they're looking lovely and silver now instead of the tarnished mess that they were. What I normally do at the same time as this, or within the same thing, is we oil the neck. So let me just get my oil. Okay, so we're using this Dunlop 65 lemon oil. You can use any mineral oil. This is probably about £4 or £5 on eBay, probably a little bit more if you buy it in your local guitar shop. But even things like baby oil, as long as it's a mineral oil, it will do your fretboard the world of good. So all I tend to do with this is I just spray a little bit all the way up the neck, and I have an old toothbrush here, just give it, work it into the fretboard, give it a good clean. Okay, so all we do is work our way all the way up with this, and then just using a tissue paper basically, just wipe off the excess. Okay, so I'm just going to go, see now that looks a lot healthier, a lot nicer. I'm just going to whip up the rest of the neck, get the rest of it done. If you want to do the same, and join me when I've finished. Okay, that's all done and cleaned off, and the neck is nice and oiled. What we're going to do now is move back to the main event, which is replacing the strings. So I'm using Ernie Ball Hybrid Slinkies. These are 946s. Whatever gauge strings you're using at the moment, if you're looking to change them, you can pretty much go up a grade or down a grade without it altering your intonation and your truss rods and such. So if you want to change them, it's up to you. So the main difference we're going to do with this is when we replace these strings is one end of these has a ball on the end. Now normally you'll push this through towards the block of the guitar. What we're going to do here is we're going to use this bare end and just feed into the tuner here. Make sure we go under the tensioner, pull it through to there, and then we're basically then going to connect it in at the other end. So we'll put the bridge end of the guitar. You'll notice where your string came out, your old string came out, there's a slot, a guiding slot there. And all we really want to do is just to make sure that this string goes in there. Now this is the end that you've just pulled through from the other end of the guitar, and it basically goes fits straight into there. It will go so far down and then it will stop. So all you need to do then is just tighten that back up the way you untightened it before. Make sure that it is definitely in the slot and you've got a bit of tension on it, because when you tighten it up from the other end, if it's too loose it will pull out. So all we're going to do now is just basically tighten it up a bit. Okay, so we're back at the other end of the guitar up towards the head, and all we're going to do now is basically we're going to wind it onto this tuning peg here. All I would do with this generally is if you tighten it up and get a reasonably tight sort of string on there, and just to make sure you've got enough string on your winder, all I tend to do is just grab it, pull it back 2 frets and then hold it there. And then basically it's a case of winding the string on. Now on these pointers, if you like, you need to just wind anti-clockwise until you get a bit of tension on them. You take a few winds in there. These will come on. And we're basically just looking to get a bit of tension on the string. so you should be able to hold a lowish note if you like that. See, there's tension on there, that's fine. What you're going to notice with this as well, until you've got all these strings on, you're maybe going to get a bit of a buzz off it. This is simply because your truss rod's not tensioned up yet. Once you've got all your strings on and they're all at tension, then it'll be absolutely fine. So what we're going to do now is you have another 5 strings to do. So I'm going to pause the video there and we'll put the other 5 strings on. Again, just say wind them up, just give it a couple of frets worth of slack. Wind them up until you've got a bit of a note on there. It doesn't have to be in tune yet, but just so you've got some tension on the strings. So if you want to pause the video there, and we'll come back when all the strings are on. Okay, welcome back. So we should all be in the position now where your guitar should look something like a strung guitar. Just make sure that those strings that you've pushed in to here are lined up with these slots. Okay, if they're not, then take the opportunity now to slacken your tuning peg off. You just get it lined up before you tune it back up again. Okay, so this end should look nice. You've got a lot of scruffy ends hanging around. Don't worry about those for the moment. You've got a lovely oiled neck with lovely clean frets, and you've got all of your strings tensioned in at this end. So what we're going to do now is just grab a tuner and bring these up to tune. Okay, so we've now got a tuner in. Now, just to make you aware, guys, you do not need an expensive tuner to do this. Whether you've got a little cheap clip-on like this, whether it be a Boss TU3, whether it be a strobe tuner that sits within your PC, it doesn't matter. All you're trying to do at this point in time is get your strings to a near as tension as you can do. So all we're going to do now is just go through the strings one by one, get them tuned up. He's lucky. Okay, so it's not to bore you all to death watching my hand tune a guitar. I'll pause the video there again. If you tune all of your strings up to normal tension, just normal tuning, E, A, D, G, B, E, and then we'll start the video again. Okay, so all of your strings are now in tune. May take a couple of runs through on the strings to keep them that way, but now we've got the tension on there, we're in a position where we can remove this block. So if you remember back to the beginning of the video, we rammed a cloth or a battery or anything else down the back of here, just basically stop this rear block disappearing into the void. Now you've got your tension back on your strings, we don't need this anymore. So basically trim an arm down, cloth out, and you should return back to pretty much where you were before you started. You should be quite straight on there. So all we need to do now is the boring bit and stretch the strings and get it all back into tune again. So what you'll find now when you go back to your tuner is that you are vastly out of tune. So what we're going to do now is just retune it and stretch the strings, and basically this is the boring part of the job. It's a case now of just doing this until it stays in tune. So we'll start with the E again. Oh, a bit low on the E, so to tune that up a little bit, get it to where it is, and then basically it's a case of just pulling these strings a few times all along the length of the string, just to try and release some of the stretch on that. And you'll go again, and it's a bit lower, get to the E. Okay, do this again a few times, stretch your strings out. And again you'll see, oops, sorry, camera's turned. Again, out of tune. So what I would do, instead of just sitting on the E string and tuning this, I generally go across all 6 of the strings until they stay in tune basically. It's just a case now of just stretching them, retuning, stretching and retuning until you get to the point where when you stretch them, they aren't going out of tune anymore. So I'll pause the video there and hopefully you'll not lose the will to live before you've got your guitar back in tune. And then if you want to unpause the video, we'll do the final pieces. Okay, welcome back. I'm hoping now you should all have your strings in tune. So we should be able to go through all of the strings. Yeah, it's a little bit off, but I'm not too concerned about that. Oh yeah, that's fine. So you've now got it in tune. What we need to do is just do a tidy up. So the next thing we're going to do is just drop these locking tuners back in. I'll just whip round and get those. Okay. So same as we did before, it's the same nut or Torx or hex screw or whatever that we have at the other end of the guitar, and you just screw these back on. Make sure they're reasonably tight, not overly tight, they just need to be holding the string in place. Nothing of any structure, if you like. And those are screwed back in. I think that's cross-threaded, bear with me a sec. Okay, what you might find now is you may find that it's nipped out of tune a little bit, in which case mine hasn't, so we're okay. But what you would normally do at this point is sometimes when you put these locking tuners back on, they make the strings go a bit sharp. If that's the case and they do go sharp, all you need to do basically is loosen these off a little bit and just tune your string a little bit low. And then when you tighten it back up again, it should all be okay. So as you can see, they like the G's slightly out. All we would do at this point in time is using the fine tuners at the other end just to gently bring it back into tune. And we're all okay there. So that is pretty much it. All's left to do now is just to trim these bits of string off the end here. So I'll just get these side cutters, and all we're going to do is just trim these reasonably close to the string, not too tight obviously. And then we're just going to trim those off just to make it a bit tidier, a bit safer. And that is it. So that, ladies and gents, is it. Hope it's been of use to you. It just shows it's not as difficult as some people say. So I hope it's been of use to you. If you want to make any comments or any likes or anything, then please do so, and I'll do another video at another point on something different. Bye bye.